Hi everyone, today is July 1st, 2017, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is GreenRanger.
And I'm DeckTech.
And just as a programming thing, today is Saturday, not Sunday, so if there's any news tonight, we're not going to talk about it, obviously, but we'll try to include it in the notes if possible. Alright, so Bakura's been back this week, and the issue which has caused a lot of angst amongst the competitive community is how hard it is to farm him. And it seems like Konami finally made a duelist who is unfarmable. I mean, sometimes you can farm him, but the consistency just isn't there. And a lot of people have been angry about it, us included. So how has Bakura been to you, and also what else have you been doing in the Duel World?
Well, as you know, Bakura's not been great to me. We were talking about it, and we figured it out. I have a 50% win rate trying to farm him. At first, I thought that was a little bit of an underrepresentation because some of my attempts to farm him were trying to innovate, I guess, on the established ways, and so I lost a few to just experimentation. But then I realized that also included my wins against 10, 20, and 30, which were all wins and were easy. And I think even my first win against 40, I didn't try to farm it, I just beat him normally, and I won against 50. So there's 4 wins in there that aren't farming attempts. And given that I've only played 16 total games against him, I haven't really gone too hard on it yet. I'm going to be doing it more this weekend. That's a very high percentage of failed farms. So it's not going so hot. We realized that the calculation's a little bit off, but I was doing something like 2,700-ish duel assessment per farm, which is pretty bad. So I'm really contemplating just sticking to 30 going forward. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the various methods for 40, and we'll definitely be tweeting something out if someone comes up with something else that might be a little bit better. In terms of other stuff, I finally got to playing the tunes that we were talking about last week. I was really close before. I had Pegasus at like 39, I think, when we recorded last week. So I just made that final little bump forward, and I have 2 of the Toon Summon Skulls. The third one still hasn't shown up in the trader, but I think 2 is good enough for what I was doing. And I went the whole cycle with playing it from this deck is OP to this deck is very fragile and like super draw dependent. I won my first, I think, 7 or 8 games in a row, and then once I hit really gold like 2, you start to see more meta decks, and it just became a lot harder because a lot of meta decks run spell and trap removal. So, or even things like Kuribo and Windstorm and other stall effects can also just cause some issues because it's very similar to 3-Star Demotion and Taya Burn. And so any sort of little disruption can kind of bring a hiccup to the plan. At the higher ranks, when you know that they're running more spell and trap removal, you kind of have to make the decision if you're going to go all in or if you're going to try to wait for your protection, the reflector, magical reflector, I think. And so if you don't draw it initially, then you're kind of sitting there doing nothing for a while. And I'm sure there's something there, but I think the initial hype has passed a little bit, so we'll see. We're going to talk about some skill changes and stuff that are coming up later, so I've been also experimenting with trying to figure out what I'm going to do after those go live.
Just as a quick thing, does Storm get rid of... Like, the magical protector doesn't protect against Storm, right? Like, it destroys both magic cards, right?
It does.
Okay,
well, the way the magical protector works is that it doesn't stay on the field. It leaves a gem or something. It leaves a counter on the card. So if you use Storm on something that has had the protector, then it takes off the counter. and then they need to get rid of it another way. So Storm isn't too bad because that's really big card disadvantage for them. And they usually, you would need Storm, the second Storm, and then 2 things to sacrifice to the Storms. So they need 4 cards to get rid of your 2, essentially, which is probably a good move on their part if they could pull it off, because it means you lose. But it's also pretty hard for them because they need to have those 4 cards.
Gotcha.
How about you? What are you doing?
Yeah. So, Bakura, sorry, I just got Necrofear last night, so I'm like at 1.4 million, and yeah, same struggles. I've been doing this beatdown version of farming, which I'll talk about later, but consistency hasn't been there. My average duel assessment's about 2,900. I don't think I beat level 50 yet. I faced them a couple times. One time I just lost it for some stupid reason. Like, I forgot to use block attack or something. I forget what it was, and I lost. No, I forgot to use Gravedigger Ghoul when he obviously had Necrofear in his hand. So that's why I lost. And then PvP, I haven't played much. I played it last Sunday, just so I could get 100 gems, obviously. But I was doing the Dark Flare thing with Blue Eyes. Yeah, my version has Blue Eyes and Dark Storm Dragon. And I realized that Dark Flare is more of a card that you could use in any deck, really, that uses Dark and Light. It's not really the deck you would put 3 of them in to build around. So, I didn't realize that, but I guess that's what it is. Yeah, but it's just a good card. We're not going to talk about it anymore, but it's just a consideration for future Dark and Light decks. But yeah, that's it, Dark Flare.
I actually did see essentially it was a Last Gamble deck that ran Dark Flare as like its 1-turn kill thing, but it's probably not the best version of either Dark Flare or of Last Gamble. So it is possible if you want to make it a build around, but that's probably not how you should do it.
Yeah, Last Gamble I'm trying to get as well. I'm just using Joey to fight, anyone that shows up. That's how I get. I'm not really playing them in the wheel, so yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the news tournament and last week's Reddit tournament that happened on Sunday. So it was evidenced by Mokuba's drops. It was termed the Dark Flare version of the Reddit tournament. 5 out of 31 players used those decks, and 4 of them used other dragon decks. They might have run Dark Flare or Kidmodo Dragon. Other notable decks, 5 normal Harpies, as always, 3 Gravekeepers, 3 Dragon Beatdowns, 1 or 2 of the other meta decks, but no Toons, Teoburn, and Weevil decks, which is pretty interesting. I guess those might more be ladder grinders than tournament decks. That's maybe why they don't show up, but I don't really know.
Yeah, I think Toons and Teoburn feel more like the types of ladder grindy decks that they're intended to be pretty quick games, and so it's intended to be something that you would play maybe if you want to get a lot of games in, but if you're trying to win a specific set number of games, it's maybe not as solid. I am a little bit surprised that Weevil's not showing up because Weevil had been the champion of the Reddit tournaments for a while. Maybe that's why it's not, because people figure they'd get countered or something. But Weevil won something like 4 out of the first 5 Reddit tournaments or something. And the other reason why I'm a little bit surprised that Weevil is not shown up is that Weevil counters Harpies, and every week we get a significant portion of the Reddit tournament meta being Harpies of the normal variety or relinquished. I think there was 1 relinquished Harpies in there as well. So it's a little bit weird that Weevil's not in there. He doesn't fit with Toons and Teoburn, in my opinion.
First place winner is CTY, who infamously is known as Timmy, Creative Timmy, and he played a Red Lotus Harpies build. Included 2 Dimension Gates, and I followed the tournament. I logged on to Battlefy to check it out, and Timmy actually I think he was the first elimination, so it's like a double elimination format, and he lost first, and then he had to beat the same guy about like 3 times to win first place. He beat Mr. Grind like 3 times.
Oh, so, man.
I guess this deck in particularly favored him a lot versus Mr. Grind.
Right, and they mentioned, that was the next one. But I could see it being pretty solid.
Yeah. As we said, Mr. Grind is using a full Relinquish deck. It has a lot of 3-ofs. Let's see. It's all in German, so Crystal Seer, Interdimensional Matter Transporter. Those are the 2 cards, but a lot of 3-ofs of the Ritual, the Sonic Birds, and the Senjus. Just a full Relinquish deck. Yeah,
the tournament report calls it an extremely standard Relinquished, which I love that description. This is extremely standard, guys. And yeah, it is. Like you said, the only thing that really stands out are the 1 Crystal Seer and the 2 Interdimensional Matter Transporters. Everything else is just everything that you would run. So it's the 3 Relinquished, 3 of each Searcher, 3 Kurbo, 3 of the Ritual, and then 2 enemy controllers. And what CTY/Timmy was running was the Harpies Hunting Ground, 3 normal Harpies, the Lotus, the 3 Order to Charge, and 3 enemy controllers. So it's not surprising to me at all that he just stomped on Relinquished, because there's a lot in there that just Relinquished has trouble with. And if you can... Oh, sorry. But if you can tribute the thing that Relinquished would eat to an Order to Charge or an enemy controller, then he needs the Interdimensional Matter Transporter to protect his guy, or a Kuribo to protect his Relinquished, or it's over. The Order to Charge, of course, Kuribo doesn't work for that enemy controller. Kuribo sometimes works for it. So and then just the Harpies Hunting Ground with the Harpies coming in can also kill whatever the Relinquished eats. So there's just a lot of ways for that deck to really beat up on a deck that is 100% focused on Relinquished play.
That must have been really frustrating to lose nonstop, like 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And also looking at these decks, it speaks to how consistency is really good, and how 3-ofs in a deck really, like the best decks, they always have three of everything. Decade's decks, they always do. I guess that's really important. 3rd place, Chungam with Gravekeepers. See, pretty standard, I'd say. It has 2 Fiend Jesters, 2 double summons, 2 soul exchanges. No, I think typically they run 3 soul exchanges. Let's see, 1 eliminating the league. I guess it's fairly standard, but
yeah, this looks like it's a standard Gravekeepers deck with a player who has slightly less than a full collection, is what I would say. And that explains why he has kind of 2 of each of the ramp cards instead of maybe a 3 of the Soul Exchange or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is very similar to like how my Gravekeepers would probably look if I were to build it, because I'm just shy just a few cards out of what might be the standard one. But it's, it's almost there. It's 90% there.
It's pretty good, though. 4th place got Sphered. Red Lotus, Venus, Shine Ball. Interesting deck. 2 Red Lotus, 3 Venus, 2 Beaters in Pachi and Dunamis, 3 Shine Balls, Symbols of Duty. That's a card we don't really see too often. 3 Orders to Charge, 2 Enemy Controller, 2 White Elephants Gifts, and 2 Order to Smash.
Yeah, it seems like a very solid version of Venus. I could see this being pretty well refined. It looks a little bit light on power, but you kind of run out of slots, so that makes sense. Order to Smash is really good to clear the back row, which makes it kind of play very similarly to Lotus Harpies, because you've got this back row clear and the econs and the Order to Charge, and it's just a card advantage game. but you will notice that there's no Jar of Avarice or the other one, Benevolence, or anything else to put your Shine Balls back into your deck, and that's because you no longer need that now that you have the Red Lotus. So it used to be that you wanted to recycle your Shine Balls that way, but now you can do it with the Red Lotus, and it's better because you don't take the damage from resummoning them with Venus, and you also get the beater in the Red Lotus guy. So it seems like it's a improved deck, and looks pretty solid, but I think it seems like Harpies would probably be the better version for now, at least. We're going to talk about some skill changes later, and they probably play pretty similarly. So I think I would go with Harpies, at least for now.
All right. So there's going to be another tournament tomorrow, and we're going to report about that one. I think it's... Yeah, it's tomorrow. Okay. So Bakura has been the big deal. He's been the main event this week, and it's going to be going on for another week, I believe. And he's coming up with new rewards. A second copy of... first of all, you could unlock him if you haven't unlocked him before. A second copy of Necrofear, and new cards in Archfiend Empress and Fiend Griefing. So let's talk about what we've been doing unsuccessfully, and what are some of the popular methods that are being tested right now, I guess.
Sure. You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I tried the Destiny Draw version, which was something that we used last time that Bakura came around, and it worked pretty well last time. I think it was my farming deck last time, and the way that that one works is you have the day counter blow and lots of life gain cards, and then your your finisher stuff, and you essentially just and one Gravedigger Ghoul. And so what you do is you just stall him out by taking a bunch of damage, tanking it, but you gain a bunch of life, so it's not like, in theory you can do that. And the day counter blow prevents him from, it really slows him down because it kills any monsters that attack you directly, so he doesn't like to do it. That version was not successful for me. I think I went 0-2 with it before I dropped it, maybe 0-3. Against the new Bakura, he runs... So the problem with the Destiny Draw version is that it stalls by preventing him from attacking. But if he gets you low enough that he can attack and kill you, he'll do it, even if it means his guys die because you die, so he doesn't care. So Ectoplasm was always a little bit of an issue for the deck because it kind of deals you chip damage over time, and then once he gets you low enough, he'll attack in and finish it off. New Bakura runs Burning Lands as well, and so he's got that extra source of chip damage that makes it just that much harder, just a tiny bit harder to stay out of finisher range. So the Destiny Draw version did not feel great for me, and I gave it up. The other version that I was trying, and that was for level 40. I've been doing almost all level 40s. The other version I've been trying for level 40 is a Labyrinth Builder deck, which was essentially developed by Mascaron. He, as you guys might remember from a few episodes back, he's a pretty famous YouTuber, if you're not familiar with his stuff. He also did the interviews that we talked about a little while back of the various people who did well in the World Championship qualifiers. So he developed this version that uses Labyrinth Builder, which is a skill for the Paradox Brothers, where you put 2 cards from your hand back into your deck and you get a Labyrinth Wall, which is a 3,000 defense guy. And the way that deck works is you have a few key traps to protect your wall, to protect against him killing you through not attacking, because he doesn't have anything big enough to attack through the wall. So he has to kill you with the ectoplasm and or burning lance.
The man-eater bug does, right?
Well, yeah. All right. So the man-eater bug can destroy the wall, but you run 3 dimension gates. And so what you do is you put the wall down on the first turn, and then you hopefully put a dimension gate down as well, at least before he puts down the man-eater bug. And that way, when he flips the man-eater bug, you can flip over your dimension gate and get and protect it. It removes it from the game, or banishes it, to use the right terminology, and then he doesn't want to attack because that would allow it to come back in. Even if he draws another man-eater bug, I don't think that he is smart enough to figure out that he should attack to let you bring it back in and then set the man-eater bug and try again. But so that protects your wall and also protects your life because he doesn't like to attack into it. Then you run wild tornadoes, and Mask used 3. I only have 2, so I also put in 2 D spells. And you use those to clear the ectoplasm and the burning lands. And then you have 1 or 2 cards. I use Disappear and Pot of Benevolence to get rid of the board, the Destiny board. To get rid of the Necrophere in his grave, which then gets rid of the Destiny board countdown. So the reason why you want to use Disappear, the reason why you want to use Wild Tornado is because that gets rid of it on his turn before he gets to benefit from one of the activations of Ectoplasm or Burning Lands, so it gives you a little bit more life points, stay a little bit more out of range. And the reason why you want to use Disappear as well as those other traps is that you run a Cat of Ill Omen. And unless he attacks it with Hades or Hades, you get the effect is that when you flip it, you put a trap card from your deck on top of your deck. So you can tutor out which one of those 3 things you need, which is helpful. Pot of Benevolence is also good because it prevents him from decking out before you do, and it gives you just a second draw. So the rest of the deck is just draw cards, and the finisher is the Piranha Army plus Gift of Martyr using, what's it called? Master of Oz?
Yeah.
And the reason why that's the finisher is because it takes fewer cards than does Vassal and Union Attack. A couple of my losses were I was trying to shove in Union Attack because this deck, when it works, gets like 7,000 something points in the 7,000 range. And so I was trying to get Union Attack in there so that I could have an 8K assessment. And that ended up just, kicking my butt. That didn't work. So do you want to talk about the level 50 farm that I used?
Sure. You used a different deck for that one?
It's very similar. It's also Labyrinth Builder. The difference is that I used Ritual Ceilings. You don't need Wild Tornado. So I also used 1 Divine Wrath. It's pretty much the same deck, except it also has room for the Union Attack stuff. Level 50 is a good amount easier than level 40 in my experience. And I haven't yet tried any of the level 30 methods.
Yeah, level 30, he has Exchange. And he could, in my game, he stole my Piranha Army, so that happened. And he also used Gravel Storm on me.
Ooh.
I forget what I was trying to activate. I was trying to activate some kind of removal, I think, and then he used Gravel Storm and countered. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us all, because I'm done with mine, why don't you tell us everything about your tries?
Yeah, so I've been doing... I tried the Mask Dimension Gate version, but I'm short some cards, and I gave up after a few tries, like 2 or 3, and then I switched over. I was just scouring Reddit for things, and then on YouTube I saw this. I'm not sure if I found it on YouTube or on Reddit, but the video was in Spanish, so I could piece out words and try to figure out what it was talking about, but I got the gist of it. And what it is it's a dinosaur deck, so you run 3 Two-Headed King Rex, 3 Crawling Dragon 2, you have Diffusion, which is the Brachial Radius, you have, it would be helpful if I had it in front of me, you have 2 elemental Saurs, but it runs a lot of removal from the graveyard, so you run 3 Gravedigger Ghouls, 2 Pot of Benevolence, and then there's a block attack in it. I'll explain the block attack later. 2 Gravity Axes, Ryoku, Gift of the Martyr, Blue Eyes, Piranha Army. I think I got everyone. I think that's the deck. But how it works is, ideally, it runs on certain conditions. If Bakura plays Burning Land on his first turn, it's over. So that's one condition. He only has 1 in his deck, so it's not the most frequent thing. The ideal hand to have is to have one of your vanilla dinosaurs and 1 removal from the graveyard and also an elemental source. So turn 1, you play your dinosaur. He probably plays something in defense mode because he can't kill 1900 unless he has the sword. Then you play your elemental source, and elemental source is great because it's a natural counter to Maneater Bug. Maneater Bug is an Earth type, and even if it's on the field alone, it can abuse the Earth type attribute and negate the Maneater Bug. But if you have your regular dinosaur out, you could also negate Sangan and Doomdog, so that's useful. And basically you would hit him in the face once or twice. You try not to kill him, but you hit him in the face enough. Sometimes he plays the Malice Doll of Demise in attack mode for no reason. I think he wants to try to use Ectoplasmer, but you hit him in the face again. I mean, you kill the Malice Doll of Demise, and you keep his life so low that he doesn't want to activate Burning Land or Ectoplasmer. And once he has 2 Fiends in his graveyard, you have to use your Gravedigger Ghoul or Pot of Benevolence to get rid of them, because he's going to summon Necrofury when he has 3. So you have to keep looking at his graveyard to see what he has. The block attack is useful against Hades because he only has 1600 defense. So there are a lot of conditions to this deck, and you have to play smart so you don't kill Bakura. But once you get his Ectoplasmer or Burning Land, and once you prevent him from activating those cards, you can get 7,200 dual assessment, 7,100 dual assessment points with this method. It's fairly budget, and it makes sense. You use Destroy his stuff, you don't have to worry about keeping him at 4,000 so you can unleash your Piranha Army to do the last attack. It doesn't require an effect damage only with Vassal, so it doesn't matter if you lower his life points. And the deck is just solid enough that you don't get killed by the Destiny board. There's just so much removal, and that's the deck.
Yeah, before we move on, I want to return to the Labyrinth builder a little bit. The reason why it's not more solid is because the downside of the Labyrinth builder of requiring you to put cards back into your deck.
So that dilutes everything.
Right, exactly. So it makes your draws a little bit harder. And you want the Dimension Gate early because you want to protect your guy from the Maneater Bug. You want the Disappear or Pot of Benevolence pretty early because otherwise you lose to Destiny board. And you want the Wild Tornadoes and or D-Spells pretty early because if Ectoplasm or Burning Lands is on the field too long, you just die to those. So you want all 3 of those pretty early, so you need your cards to come in the exact right order. and you get to pick which 2 cards from your hand you put back into the deck for Labyrinth Builder, so it's not as bad. I won my first 3 farms with it, so for a little bit I thought this deck was just like the truth and was really easy to use. But then after that, luck caught up to me, and I had a few bad draws in a row. So that's the downside of that version, is that it's just a little bit hard to draw everything within the timetable that you need it.
Have you tried the Buster Blader version?
No, I've not. I'm probably going to, maybe try another 1 or 2 of these before I give up on 40, but pretty much everyone, like in the comments and even on the list, we have a Redditor has compiled a list of all of the other Redditors and content creators' suggestions. And so I'm looking at that list now. We're going to put it in the show notes so you can check it out as well. That has all of the various lists, and some of them come with videos or instructions as well. I'm going to try out maybe another couple, but I'm pretty close to giving up and just trying to do level 30. It's just more efficient for dice.
We'll have to give Konami a well played. They really made something that stumped everyone.
Yeah. It was cheeky.
Yeah. All right. New cards, new trader cards.
Oh, actually, before we go to that, this one we forgot to put it in the show notes. But some of the cards that have been traditionally used for farming have been changed. One of them is a bug, and the other one seems to be a rules change. So, Temple of Kings, we got an announcement that is bugged, and at the time of recording, the announcement says that it's still bugged and that they're working on it. They know about it, but they're still working on it.
It's going to be back when Bakura's gone.
Yeah, right. It was bugged, in quotation marks. But yeah, Temple of Kings does not work, so you shouldn't see it on any of these lists, but in case you do or you have that idea yourself for trying to farm Bakura, make sure that it's not bugged anymore. And Unhappy Girl it's a little bit unclear to me if it was a rules change or if this was changing the digital version to match the existing rules, but it used to be that the Unhappy Girl, if she attacked into a face-down monster, or I guess attacked into any monster, and it was subsequently turned face-down, it would still be under her influence. But now the rule is that is not the case. If she attacks a monster and it gets subsequently turned face-down, then it's, free of her spell. And there's not a ton of card effects in this game where that really would matter, but more might come, and there are some.
It's the Yugi farm, right? Because he flips them over with the statues?
Oh, yeah, I guess for the Yugi Moto, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Yugi Moto, if he comes back, it might matter for that. Yes, you're right, because Unhappy Girl was very popular for Yugi Moto. So that's probably the one where it's going to affect us most. It seems like this was not a change to her text or a nerf or anything, but it seems like this is just kind of a rules either change or fix to match the rules better for Yu-Gi-Oh! So just so you know, going forward, she has changed. Obviously, she's very unlikely to change back because that's just the rules change, whereas the temple should be fixed pretty soon. I mean, they've been working on that bug for a little while now. So
yeah, I thought Unhappy Girl was a really big deal when I saw it because I thought it was the first card where they actually changed the card for Duel Links, but we don't really know what it is. Yep. All right, so 4 new cards from the trader. The first one is this is like the biggest trap card ever. It's not a trap card, but it's a monster. It's the new Neo Daedalus Ocean Dragon Lord. You basically have to sacrifice Daedalus and destroy all the cards on the field. Really explosive and fun, but it's not going to work, right? It's never going to trigger.
No, this is like a huge devotion of resources. Even the original Daedalus doesn't really see very much play anymore. When the game first started, it was pretty dominant as like the main finisher in the game, but now there's wild tornadoes and security orbs and more ways to counter the effect with things like, what's it called? Divine Wrath, I think? Yeah, so now there's a lot of counterplays, whereas before there were very few. And so this is not good.
Yep. I mean, I saw a lot of people that were really excited about it, but that's kind of like a new thing if you saw a card that destroys all the monsters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool effect. And obviously if it goes off and you don't get hit by a counter, you're almost guaranteed to win because they lose their entire hand and their board. You lose your hand too, but that's not as much of a downside because you've probably spent most of your hand just getting it out there because you need to summon the Daedalus and then tribute it. So that's probably not a huge downside. It's also not a huge downside that you lose your board because, again, you probably were doing that already. So
yeah. All right. Next one is Feng Huang, which is a spirit, 2100 attack, which is 1 tribute. Like all spirits, it goes back to your hand, but it has a pretty strong ability when it's normal summoned or flip summoned. Destroy all set or spell trap cards your opponent controls. So it's all the ones that are face down. Yep. You like this card, right?
Yeah, I really like the effect. I like that the downside, the spirit downside of returning it to your hand is kind of an upside as well because it means you get to reuse it, in theory at least. And it's kind of just a cool card. With 2100 attack, it's almost good enough attack to kind of, it competes with the 4-star monsters that are pretty common, so it's almost good enough. I wouldn't spend super rare stones or jewels or whatever they're called on it. I don't think it's worth getting from the trader unless you just have a ton of resources, but I think it's a cool card, and maybe someone will find a place for it someday.
Yeah, it's good to have some good spirits to use for once. Next one's a field, a legendary ocean. This card is treated as Umi, reduce the level of all water monsters in both players' hands and on the field by 1. All water monsters gain 200 attack and defense.
So this one we were talking about it a little bit. There aren't a ton of 5-star water monsters that are really impressive. The ones that kind of raise your eyebrow the most are probably Orca Mega Fortress because it's pretty huge, and Legendary Fisherman because he's immune to being targeted by stuff and has a decent body as well. But I think maybe the bigger impact is that it also reduces your 4-star water monsters, which then lets Hammer Shark special summon them. So it's all kind of coming together for Mako. He's gotten a lot of good stuff recently, including his new character level up cards. So it's a little bit unclear if you'd run a Legendary Ocean, because, I'm not sure if it's worth the slots to do that for that discount. But in any deck in which you would run Umi, you'd probably run Legendary Ocean instead. Pretty much all of the Mako decks are running the Hammer Shark anyway, so that's nice. And then I've seen a little bit of OG Daedalus come back now that you want to run a Legendary Ocean. So in the Daedalus decks of yore. You ran Mako's ability that gives you a Yumi at the beginning, but you also ran another Yumi or 2 in your deck naturally because the Daedalus requires you to tribute the Yumi to activate its effect. So if you're running it naturally, you might as well run this Legendary Ocean.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then you could kind of do the inverse. I think some of these players wanted to run the Legendary Ocean, so they went back to the Daedalus, and they said, I want to run it naturally, so the deck that runs it naturally is Daedalus deck. So I think there's some stuff there.
Mako decks seem really fun to build. There's just so many pieces, and no one knows what the right thing is.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and there's a few different versions. that are out there. And like I said, he's just gotten a ton of new tools recently. I don't know why they seem to love Mako over there. I don't know. They always give him some good stuff. He was dominant at the start of the game, and then he kind of disappeared for a while, and now it seems like they're really intent on trying to bring him back.
Yep. Here's another guy. This guy looks really cool. I think the artwork's really cool, but Umino Taurus. If a fish, sea serpent, or aqua type you control attacks a defense monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. So that's basically all the monsters you would use in a Mako deck, right?
Yeah, we talked about this before. I'm not actually sure which of the water monsters are which of these various types, but I did look up fish, sea serpent, and aqua type, and it is a lot of the good ones. I don't remember if it's all of the good ones, but one thing to note is that he himself is an aqua type. So he has 1700 attack. You're going to have a Yumi or a Legendary Ocean on the board, so he's a 1900 attack guy with piercing. Just on his own, he's good. Like, that's just a really good card on its own. Even if you don't have Yumi on the field, he's still pretty solid. 1700 up until, like, I don't know, a month and a half ago was the strongest guy you could have as a 4-star. So he's really solid. He makes your other guys really good. I think that card gets a lot of play, maybe in the Hammer Shark Starboy decks, because those tend to be more of like a tempo type build, and this seems like a good tempo card to get around people trying to chump block and stall for some sort of swing turn. And
it's just a rare, so you could get a ton of these.
Oh yeah, it's super cheap. This card's just like I said, it's another example that they just love Mako and they're just giving him all those goodies.
I don't know what the hell this guy is supposed to be in his artwork. He looks like a person, but then his like head's kind of...
Yeah, he's like a,
freaky fish guy.
Yeah, he's a fish guy. His axe seems to be made out of a shell, right?
Yeah, clam, cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool card all around. Alright. So now we're going to talk about EX Gems, which is a new implement with version 1.7 that came with Bakura. And EX, I guess, stands for event. I don't know what the X stands for, but they're a new type of gem. They're lime green, and you get them with dueling Bakura. You get them first for leveling up. So you get, when you move Bakura from 10, 20, 30, 40, you get these. You also get them from playing him a certain number of times. So I think up to 60 times, but they give you achievements at 20, 30, 40. And he also drops them from his chests when you farm. So you'll see these gems, and they let you get cards, either reward cards from Bakura or cards that have rotated out of the system. And the main get this time is Big Shield Gardna, but he does cost 300 of these EX gems. You're trying to shoot for your third, right?
Yeah, I am. And 300 is a lot, just to be clear, because you get, I think, about 200 from doing all of the events. For beating Bakura, for just playing against Bakura, and for leveling him up, you get 200. So you need to get that last full 100 from various drops. And I've gotten, let's see, there's 125 missing from here, so I have 95. I think I've gotten about 12 from drops from him. Just doing some math real quick, but I'm a lawyer, so I'm not very good at math. It takes a little while. In the rare chests, they come in bunches of 4, it seems. I'm sure you can open 1 at a time probably as well. So we'll see if I can get to Gardna. It's also nice, like you noted, the event cards are in there. So the actual Archfiend Empress, which is one of the few new cards from this event, is in there as well. So I really like that they've added this ability to get to fill out your collection generally, but also to play in the event and to get the event rewards, even if you're a little bit unlucky with your drops. Because everyone can get 100 and should get 100 EX gems just from playing the event. So, and you also get one of the Empresses from the event rewards. I forget what
it's like 3 million.
Yeah, so if you play to that point, then you're essentially guaranteed to get 2, and you're probably pretty likely to get a full set. So I really like that. As someone who sometimes ends up getting a little bit unlucky with the drops, or just short of lucky, as the case may be, it's nice to have that just a little bit of a fallback.
Yeah, Trance Archfiend is a card I only got 1 of last time, and now I'm in good position to get 3, just because of this.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and also other cards you can get is Bad Reaction to Samachi, which is a card I like. I've played with before, and cards from the Flipper campaign like Power Injector and Spell Shield. So sometimes I say Spear Shield, and sometimes I say Shield Spear. I just said
Shield
Spell.
Spear.
I don't know
you just made something up right now. Is what happened, but that's all right. They know what we mean. That one card
that's really good, and you could use it in anything.
You can use it in anything.
So good. And then another feature is that this isn't a feature that's current, but it's coming up, that you can use your rare stones, which you should have thousands of, maybe hundreds of thousands. You could use them to upgrade your cards to make them glossy or prismatic. Other than aesthetic reasons, you can definitely use this for your farming decks to get extra dual assessment points.
Right. And the last thing about the trader is that the EX jewels, and I think you asked why the X is in there. I think it's just because X's look cool. You remember back in the AIM days when you're screen names?
Oh, yeah.
That's my guess anyway. The jewels will actually expire about a week after the event ends. So at my time, the 17th at 10 p.m. Pacific, they expire. So make sure you use them before they go. I mean, you could finish. It's nice that they give you a week after the event, so you don't have to try to guess if you're going to open the Archfiend. But make sure you use them at some point after you've gotten all your drops from the event and you know how many gems you have and stuff. Because otherwise they're probably going to be converted to gold or something, and that conversion rate is always terrible.
Yeah, you can use it to buy gold if you have like a few left over.
Yeah, if you have a few left over. That's obviously not a chase, though. At least for me, I have a ton of gold. I don't need any more gold.
I was really low on gold until this event, and now I'm back to like 300,000.
Yeah, I got low once, but...
Yeah. I bought all those dragon cards that I didn't have. From the UR dragons, and I used all my gold because of that. So, All right. So some upcoming events this month. I like these. I really like these things that they're telling us what to expect. Back then it was a surprise, but last 2 months we know what's going on. They're gonna have the ranked duel revamp. I think this is happening on the 4th, so in 3 days, and this is how they're adding extra ranks. So there's gonna be Plat 4, 5, and also a Legend rank before King of Games. And there's also tickets you can use for the number of duels. I think it's the number of duels you do, right? Or is it the win percentage?
It says it's the number of duels you win. And we talked about before how I hope it's not that, because that would kind of encourage you to farm noobs, to win 3 and then concede 3 in a row and drop your rank. So I hope that it's maybe a combination of final rank plus total number of wins or something like that. I like that they're encouraging total number of wins even if you don't rank up, but I don't like that it encourages you to intentionally not rank up, so we'll see.
Do you know if it's only ranked duels or can you do it in casual?
The way I read it was ranked duels, but I don't know for sure.
That makes sense. The Duel-a-thon is coming back in early July, and I think it's going to be next week. And there's going to be new rewards. They might have like a second Gamushara. Like they do this sometimes. They bring back like a second one and then they bring a new card. Could be anything though.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they actually said that there's going to be new rewards, but I do agree that they're probably going to add a new reward or two. I'm not sure if they were surprised by how popular the Duel-a-thon was. It seems like maybe they didn't make it as big of a deal the first time, but everyone on Reddit loved it. And
they wanted it to be permanent, yeah.
Right, yeah, they wanted it to be permanent. I assume that more casual players also liked it because it kind of gave them an event that they could do at their pace, even though it was kind of, themed as a race or marathon or whatever. It really wasn't. It let them play, whereas some of the events are maybe a bit intimidating. This one was a lot less so. It was a lot more casual player friendly because you could play at whatever rank you wanted and you still got the points for playing against the standard duelists and the legendary duelists and stuff. And you didn't have to beat this super hard level 40 Bakura, or you didn't have to compete in ranked play. A lot of players are afraid of going into ranked. So I think that it's probably just good for everyone who at every level. And I'm sure they got a lot of good feedback because they brought it back immediately.
Yep. Mid-July, there's going to be a new roving legendary duelist to fight. And just because he says he has a show for you, everyone says it's Arcana. And he's a magician, basically, who is one of Merrick's minions in the anime during Battle City. And it was like kind of the midpoint. I think Yugi fought Chains already, and then he fought Arcana or something like that. But basically, Arcana is a sick individual. He was going to send Yugi to the Shadow Realm, but he was all doing it because Merrick tricked him and said, "Do this for me, and I'll get your wife back for you," something like that. And he also uses a red Dark Magician and a bunch of support cards that we've seen already. We've seen Thousand Knives and other cards, but it possibly comes up with other Dark Magician support we haven't seen. Some cards I've seen in the data mine are... No, I haven't seen these in the data mine. I just looked these up. It's Dark Magic Curtain and Anti-Magic Arrows. Those could make an appearance. And the last news, the news that everyone's been waiting for, is that late July obtained a new legendary duelist who is tied to the mid-July duelist. And if it's Arcana, it's definitely going to be Merrick. And they say this is the one we've all been waiting for, and it has to be Merrick at this point.
Yeah, that seems like Merrick. And it also had the fairly evil-looking or something like that, which made me think that it was also Merrick for that reason.
And Merrick has a ton of cards that are in the data mine. His signature cards are all in there. So we might know what he's giving out, but we don't know if he's playing them or they are rewards. So
yeah,
stay tuned for Merrick. There's some speculation that the next box will feature a card known as the Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys. And the sale banner had a bunch of the old packs and then a new one. So it seems like a goof that they would put this there. But the card is a 8-star 2400, which is pretty bad. And its effect is conditional in that it has to be destroyed by an effect to destroy all their trap cards? I forget what it is.
Yes, I think that's right. I didn't pull it up.
Fast.
All right.
This is what I get for not playing the game for. Destroy all spell and trap. So it kind of reminds me of Dark Voltanis. It's like a really conditional thing, but you could use those fire cards like Bonfire Colossus or Goka the Pyre of Malice to destroy him, but it seems like it's a lot of work to put him out in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, a 2 tribute, and it's an 8-star, so you can't even really cheat it out with 3-star demotion. So,
oh, gotcha.
Yeah, that's going to be really tough to summon. But you're
Flame
right.
Ruler is the only one, I guess.
It does, yeah. It does say card effect. I initially had read it as enemy card effect. So you're right. The fire things are kind of cool. You can cheat it out, and right? Because isn't there's a fire prodigy or something? You can get it out that way.
Fire prodigy?
There's something you can tribute to get count as 2 tributes for fire, right?
Oh, the Flame Ruler.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just forgot.
I was thinking about the special summon because the kickfire decks always like rely on a special summon. So Goka the Pyromalus can be special summoned if you have this guy on the board, and then you could sacrifice him. You could attack and sacrifice or something. Right. No, you have to sacrifice him first. Never mind. Yeah, so I guess he has use in those fire trick decks. Maybe kickfire could be playable. I don't know.
Maybe.
Great. This guy looks really flashy, and then he sucks. He kind of looks like the Wind Dragon of Ra. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, he looks awesome, and you're right. I think this card is probably a lot worse in this game than it is in the original TCG, the paper version, because there are very few card effects in our current game that destroy monsters and like destroy your enemy monster. And so you kind of have to like tribute him and do it yourself, because they're not about to, order to charge this when they see what the effect is and stuff. I mean, maybe if they have to, but there's no Reigeki or whatever that would kind of make him probably a little bit better.
Yeah. Oh, so maybe we'll see him in the next box. And we're hoping we could spend more before that happens, because we are catching up on some of the old ones and buying some of the new box now.
Yeah, I'm still buying I still want my second Endymion.
So. Yeah. I still don't have that guy.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, and then some really big news. Skill changes coming up on July 18th, and these are balance changes. So, main one of the main one of everyone's attention is Harpies Hunting Ground, and it changes it from being an automatic field spell to being a top deck card. So you draw it on your first turn. And the clear downside is that you're running an extra deck, so you're running a 21 card deck, and also you're down a card when you're drawing because you draw the card instead. Some say this is a situationally better skill change because you can protect your spell from being twisted on the first turn. And also it makes really the mirror matches really interesting about who would play the card first. You think this is not a huge nerf, right?
Right. So I agree with the situationally better side of it. I think that's kind of inarguable. It is sometimes better to hold it in your hand and to wait until the moment when you get some good targets to clear to play it and then play your Harpies. Or to, if you don't even have Harpies at first, you might want to wait so that it's not, subject to being destroyed until you have some activations. So I think it's definitely better sometimes. But losing a card and losing a draw is definitely a downside. So I don't think this kills Harpies. I think you have a note here that some people are saying that the relinquished variant is dead. Yeah. And the reason for that, you gotta assume, is that they think that one draw is like really important. I'm not so convinced that one draw is so important, but I do think that the relinquished version of the deck is kind of getting less and less popular just naturally anyway. So maybe it's enough to just finally push it over the edge and just get rid of it. But I think that the deck will still be very strong, and maybe it changes the way that certain things work. You were mentioning there were some cards, and I forgot what they were, that kind of allow you to shuffle on the first turn, shuffle your opponent's deck on the first turn. I think Peking Goblin was one of them.
Oh, Peking Goblin, you get to put one of their cards to the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah. I mean, maybe there's these new cards that come in as a new way to deal with Harpies. I don't think so. I think that Twister and Desert Twister stay kind of the options, and just your first turn is that you set just the Twister and Desert Twister, and then you're kind of stuck in the situation where you have to decide if you want to wait until they play their Harpies Hunting Ground before you set any of your mirror walls and stuff, or if you are going to allow the chance that they get to target it before you flip up your Twister or Desert Twister to clear it. But I think the Twister and Desert Twister still are the ways to get rid of it, and you can still do that on their turn. This does hurt Dispel as an option to clear it, but another shuffle effect is the Jade Whistle that the Weevil decks use. So it makes Weevil even a stronger counter to Harpies, which kind of leads into the next change.
Yep. So Parasite Infestation is going to get changed. Instead of getting a random number from 1 to 3 Parasects, you get 1 to 2. And on average, this changes the number of Parasites from 2 to 1.5. Doesn't seem too impactful based on that.
Yeah. I don't think it's the biggest change. I think perhaps they made it as a small, again, it's kind of a smaller nerf. It's definitely, percentage-wise, a good amount of value, but it's not going to really make or break the deck. And maybe they were just adjusting Weevil because they were adjusting Harpies, and they wanted that matchup to stay about equally bad for Harpies, not make it even worse. I'm not sure. But like you said, this doesn't seem like a huge change. I'm sure Weevil will still see some play.
It's possible, like, some games have patch notes where they tell you the exact win percentages and why they did things. And I guess we can assume the usage of Harpies was just like a tick more than Weevil, and that's why that nerf is a bit bigger than the Weevil nerf, I guess. We can assume that the percentages are like that.
Well, yeah, Harpies were everywhere, and one thing I think that was a clear indication there's a problem was that people were running Harpies in non-Harpies decks so that they could use the opponent's Harpies Hunting Ground against them and destroy the Harpies Hunting Ground by summoning a Harpy. So when the best way to maybe it's not the best way, but when a very common way to counter a deck is to essentially play that deck, that is a big problem in terms of power level. So I'm not at all surprised that Harpies saw some sort of nerf.
And you suggested that it could have been nerfed better, right? Like it could have been more impactful.
Right. So people were noting that the way that Duel Links works is they do not like to change the card text of cards, aside from like small censors like Hades and stuff, and kind of just the formatting changes. But they don't like to change the rules text of cards. And Harpies Hunting Ground is actually a card in the game. So they were kind of stuck in their design mentality where they could not change Harpies Hunting Ground's text. And I was fine with that. But some people noted that that meant that they couldn't really make any other changes. And I just think that that's wrong. The options were not only it starts on the field or it starts on top of your deck. There are options where it could have started in your hand, or it could have started, you could have had a reduced hand size and it started on the field or in your hand or in your deck or whatever. So it could have been in your deck somewhere instead of on the top of your deck. So there's lots of alternatives that they could have done. I'm assuming that they tested this one and decided that they liked this version of it as a little bit more of a minor nerf than a major nerf. Had the card only been shuffled into your deck, for instance, I'm not sure if people would be willing to run Harpies for this chance that at some point in the game you would draw it and get some advantage at that point, maybe.
Yep. All right. This is possibly the biggest nerf. 3-star demotion. You pay 3,000 life points instead of 2,000. Why is this such a big deal for a certain variant of 3-star demotion?
So we were talking about this a little bit, and that certain variant is what they sometimes call the beatdown version, which is the one pretty much closest to the one that I run. So it's the run, of course. So it's the one that runs like Joan and Barrel Dragon and Sangha as your targets. That one is hurt the hardest because it wants to activate 3-star Demotion more than once. It really kind of needs to activate it at least twice. Because even if you're double summoning, it's like you really want to fill the board with these beat sticks, and that's the point of the deck. And so now that it costs 3,000, it's really hard to do that. You need probably 2 heal spells. The big one that they had been using, of course, was Supremacy Berry. So you activate the skill, it costs 2,000, you play Supremacy Berry, you're back to full health. You can use the skill again next turn. Great for you. If it costs 3,000, though, you pay 3,000, you're at 1,000. You play the Supremacy Berry, you're at 3,000. You cannot activate the skill again because it would kill you, and I don't think the game lets you commit suicide in that way. So even if it let you, you would lose. So you can't activate the skill more than once, and that is a huge nerf to that version. The thing that I'm looking at for possibly bringing it back is to get it's called Gaia, Aegis of Gaia, I think.
Yeah.
And that's a trap that says when it's activated, you gain 3,000 life, but when the face-up trap is removed from the field, you lose 3,000 life. So that, of course, makes you very, very weak against any sort of trap removal or back row removal, of which there might be a little bit less now that Harpies Hunting Ground gets a slight nerf. But there's usually, like, pretty much every top-tier deck runs some. So if you're relying on that, you're setting yourself up for a possible, twister or whatever to just kill you. And so we'll see. I think the other versions of the deck, which are the Dark Magician version and the Machines version, has kind of made a bit of a breakout appearance. That one was actually used by Timmy and probably some other people, but Timmy used it pretty famously in the World Championship qualifiers, and it seems like a really solid deck. And one of the ways that it's solid is that it really kind of only wants to use the skill once, so it doesn't rely nearly as heavily on it. It doesn't have that many of the big guys. I think it just runs 3 Barrel Dragons, maybe even just 2. And so it's running more of a machine tempo synergy deck that has this explosive potential. And the Dark Magician version has, you can use the Fiend Jester into Dark Magician Girl. You can use Sage Stones. You can use, I think with Sage Stone especially, there's a lot of ways to avoid using the skill or maybe just using it once or something and still get the Dark Magician out on the first turn. So this is a major nerf for the beatdown version and a significant but not crippling nerf to the other versions, I would say.
You should ask Konami to get full refund value for
That's right.
Dusting John. Last skill apparently is the least used skill in the game is Fairy Smile, which is an Ishizu skill. You draw a fairy and you show it to your opponent. You gain 500. Now you gain 1,000. Probably little to no impact, but maybe it could lead away to Cyberstein. But with Cyberstein, you need to get some kind of fairy out probably, or I don't know what you're trying. I guess you could get a Master of Oz out or something. I don't know what.
Yeah, there's a few fairies, but there's not a ton. I've seen talk of a fairy deck, but we talked about it a little bit as well. That deck is probably first of all, it's kind of more of a tempo deck, so the life gain's not as important. Second of all, it seems like it's a tier 2 deck with a tier 1 price, so it's probably pretty unpopular for that reason. So there is some problem with the skill, but the other problem is that the skill just doesn't really match up with the cards that are available in the game right now. So if they end up printing a set filled with fairies, then we're all going to be just dominated by fairy meta. But at this point, it doesn't seem important because there's not very many, fairies that you would really care about.
Yep. So you just play a Shizu for BM and not this skill. Yeah, so basically these are the balance changes. They're big, and they're going to be coming up in 2.5 weeks. So look out for that. And the last thing we're going to talk about today is the first limit. So Reconstructor Revolution, the infamous burn card, and Taya burn, is being limited to 1. And this was first leaked on Facebook by accident, and then people caught on to it, and it's actually true. And obviously this has implications for cards where you draw a lot of cards for your opponent, which are Cup of Ace and the skill Dual Standby. Do you think Taya Burn's dead with this, or can it adapt to be more minion-based, or can it use a different spell?
I think that Taya Burn is dead, not because it takes a huge hit, but just because there's no reason to favor it now. I think even with the Parasite burn, the Parasite nerf, I think that using parasites as like your burn archetype makes a little bit more sense. And I think that using Taya's Dual Standby maybe for a deck out deck might be the way to go if you want to use her. But, whenever you're using a deck, you have to ask yourself why you're using it. And the answer could just be, I think it's fun. And that's cool. I totally understand. I played a bit of Taya Burn when we did a section on it, just to learn it, and it's kind of a fun deck. It's lots of fun to do a lot of things on your turn. So if you want to play for that reason, I think you can still get away with it and do okay. But if the reason why you're playing a deck is to win games, or to win them quickly, specifically, I don't think that this is your go-to deck anymore, because it lost a lot of value. The deck was largely built around Reconstructor Revolution, because the whole point of it was that you didn't really care if they had cards in their hand, because you have this upside of it deals more damage to them. So with Cup of Ace, both results were positive for you. With the Dual Standby, you have you get the advantage of your card, and you don't really care that they get the advantage of their card. So I think that it's just enough to push Taya Burn outside of the range of a good deck to play for power level reasons.
RIP, fun and interactive.
That's right.
It's over. All right. And also this there was no mention of Dark Magician, and that was the card that was rumored to be on the limit list as well, thanks to Star Demotion. In the English promo video for Crimson Kingdom, there's a 1 next to it, but it seems like it's just nothing. It's just a hoax.
Yeah, maybe not a hoax so much as just some sort of error, or maybe something that they were initially considering and then instead they decided to nerf 3-star demotion. I know that a lot of people, when they saw this, they thought that it meant that it was being nerfed, and almost all of Reddit thought that that was a very stupid nerf, because the problem was 3-star demotion, not Dark Magician. So, maybe they read all the Reddit comments and they were like, you know what, those people have a point, we're going to nerf 3-star demotion. I, of course, was on the side that neither was a problem. You don't really see either one at the highest levels. They're not winning the Reddit tournaments or anything, so I think it was more of a new hotness situation, and just the fact that some people thought it was kind of a cheap deck, which I understand, but it's not it wasn't overpowered. We actually just recently had a similar situation in Hearthstone with the nerfs to Quest Rogue, where the deck itself wasn't like super powerful or oppressive, but it maybe gave the community the feeling that it was, and so that community sentiment was enough to push for the nerf.
Yep. It's like every card I make in Hearthstone gets nerfed. I don't know what. Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility.
And it's every rogue card too, but I understand why. All right, we're gonna wrap up for today. I want to give a shout out, especially to all of our listeners in New Zealand, and the reason of this is because outside of the United States, we have the most listeners in New Zealand. They're number 2.
Hey,
so,
thanks, New Zealand.
Yep, thanks, guys. All right. Find us on iTunes and Stitcher and other podcast sources. You can check out the podcast and more at the website. All these notes are there at the duelassessment.wordpress.com. We have a YouTube channel in case you want to listen to the videos there. Patreon if you want to help support our work at patreon.com/duel_assessment. Send us an email at theduelassessment@gmail.com. We'd love your suggestions and ideas. Or you can interact with us on Twitter. Our shared account at duel_assessment, me at GreenRanger HS, and DeckTech at HS DeckTech.
That's right. We spend way too much time on Twitter, guys.
Yeah, we've been doing a little better there, and we've been interacting with people. You made Darman lose his butt.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Catch you all later.
All right. Bye, guys.